Hello and welcome back to the Premier League Years series here on FM22. We are now 9 seasons in, 10 years into the save, and I thought this would be a good point to actually use a video to take a look at the clubs that are in the Premier League and have been in the Premier League through this save, and get a better idea of what their squads are looking like, what they've won throughout the years, and the different managers we've seen in here as well. So starting off, you can see, if you didn't see the last video, this Premier League table will look pretty new to you, but I will say go back and check that one out if you want to see how we ended up in this situation. Manchester City, 4 straight Premier League titles. They are the side that we're going to start with. We're just going to work down the table until we get to 17th, and then from there we're going to take a look at the Premier League sides that we have seen throughout the years in this save so far, and just take a brief look at how they're getting on now after their most recent Premier League stints. One other little bit to add is that we are still on the 1st of June 2031, which is where we left off the previous video. I did think about advancing to the 25th for the league reset, but that's where we'll start the next video when we get back into the single season simulations. But for now, we're going to look through the Premier League sides that we will be seeing next season. So the top 17 that have all stayed up, starting with the reigning champions, Manchester City. As you can see, still at the Etihad. We may take a look at that as well, because I know Everton have changed stadium, but I don't know if anybody else has. But we'll keep an eye on that. You can see in the Legends section, mostly familiar names. And you can see Vincent Kompany in as a manager, not as a player, which is quite incredible. After he has won, I believe he's won all 4 of these Premier League titles in a row. I will have to check up on that, actually. Let's have a look now while we're at it. So Vincent Kompany came in 5 years ago, 2026, and yeah, he's won 4 Premier League titles in those 5 years. To be fair, my opinion when he first joined, I genuinely thought Man City were going to be in trouble. So I think the first season, the 26-27 campaign, Manchester City finished 3rd, and they were not even close to Chelsea. But since then, 4 Premier League titles, 14 cup wins. You can see here, starting with the Carabao and the FA Cup, then you get another Carabao, a Champions League. You can see the list there. We'll get actually into the competition screen here. You can see through the save, 3 Champions Leagues, one of those under Pep Guardiola. Also, quite a lot of runners-up spots as well. 2022 being the first in-simulation runner-up, ending 22, 24, 29, and this season runners-up as well. Premier Leagues, they are now up to 15 top-flight titles. Obviously, the first 2 don't count as Premier League titles. They were just Division 1 titles. So 13 if you're just counting Premier League. A few runners-up spots, although none in the save. And then 2 third-place finishes, which was actually Guardiola's last season and Kompany's first. So the little changeover there was their 3rd places. Another competition I haven't checked, actually, and this is a good way to see how it's got on, the Club World Cup. So Manchester City runners-up in 2025, but they actually did win it in 2029. So another trophy to be added to the pile. We've had 3 FA Cups for Man City in this run, plus 2 runners-ups. They've also won 2 Super Cups and come runner-up in a Super Cup as well. League Cup-wise, they've added 3 more, and actually in more recent years that they've added those 3. They weren't doing so hot in it initially, but they've picked that up. Community Shield, we see they've added another 5 of those. And I think that is it for honours. They have won an awful lot. If we see the general information on Manchester City from the 2021-22 season, which was the first in save season, although we fast simmed that one, you can see just all of the first places and then just those couple of third places whilst the manager change happened. So we know that Vincent Kompany is in charge, and we have seen that he actually prefers a 4-4-2, which is very interesting for a side at this level, winning everything, to be playing a 4-4-2. But it's nice to see as well. I've just listed it by the picked for now. There may be a better way to do it. Actually, let's do it by appearances. That feels like the thing that makes the most sense. And we see why there was no left back listed. Herculano Franco, who is a new gen left back, now 25 years of age. So we're certainly getting into this save, aren't we? He is actually injured at the moment. He suffered a twisted knee. But Franco is the regular starting left back, listed as an elite fullback. We have looked at him before. We actually looked when he was signed, because he cost quite a lot of money. So we were aware of him. Obviously a very, very top talent. But we see that Ederson, 63 appearances. Did any other goalkeeper make an appearance? Yes. Oliver Dovin, a Swedish keeper from Hammarby, made 2 appearances this season. Came in a couple years ago. Okay. Apparently actually made those 2 appearances the previous season, so I don't know. Oh, those were league, weren't they? Okay, no, I understand that. So these were in something other than the Premier League. We see the likes of Phil Foden making 58 appearances through the season. Brilliant season from Foden, by the way. 25 assists and 15 goals. Still a regular in the central midfield for Man City, 10 years on. And these 2 men here. Ruben Dias is in between them on the appearances, but look at this. Benjamin Sesko and Erling Haaland. 39 goals for Sesko, 37 for Haaland, though Haaland did play 6 less times. What's that? That's 76 goals between them in one season. Those 2 are absolutely terrifying. Haaland is now 30 and will actually turn 31 prior to the start of next season. So we'll see if he starts to tail off. It's not happened yet. He is still very much an elite player on £500,000 a week. Wow. And then Benjamin Sesko, now 28 years old, only just turned 28 yesterday. So he's got quite a long time still ahead of him. He's literally Haaland, but about 3 years younger. He's the same height, same terrifying stats. He's probably not quite as good as Haaland. My word, pairing those 2 up front, almost impossible to stop them. You see the likes of Yeremy Pino's been here for a very long time now. He has become a regular for Manchester City. May well be like a club idol by the end of this. You see Emiliano Sosa as a regular centre-back, so another new gen player. I mean, he is actually wanted by Nîmes. So we know about the Nîmes story if you've seen the past couple of videos and how insane they have been in the past couple of years. So it's kind of in Diaz and Sosa. I think we can ignore this player. This is his appearances for West Ham, but they're showing as Man City appearances. Okay. So we may have to keep an eye on Stefan Costosia, the Belgian central midfielder who could well start to break into the Man City lineup after a loan spell with West Ham. See, Federico Chiesa is here. Tim Eaves has been a very interesting one as well. So they've actually got 2 pretty elite level new gen fullbacks, both 25 years old. It's just an extremely talented Manchester City side. We see the likes of Bernardo Silva still here. Nico Williams has been kind of in and out of the team. Liam Delap, 20 goals on the season, despite only starting 16 times. See, Ben Bamble was a player we mentioned a while back. I say a while back, literally the beginning of last video when he was signed. I did wonder how much he'd play. Made 9 Premier League appearances with 3 goals. honestly mostly international. He's got 9 in 9 for the Ivory Coast through this season. So unfortunately, he's not seen too much game time. And then Conor Gallagher was also a very interesting transfer when that happened a couple of seasons ago. He's actually played a lot of Premier League football, just pretty much all coming off the bench. But at least he is part of these Man City sides that are winning titles. But that's how Manchester City have looked so far, and, well, how they look at the moment in the save. I did forget, actually. I've been saying that it was Guardiola to Kompany handover. It wasn't. Jurgen Klopp and Guardiola swapped jobs, didn't they, in 2023? I completely forgot that. Klopp then won 2 Premier League titles and then had that third place finish where he was removed. And then Kompany came in. So, slight mistake on my part, but I've been able to correct it at least. Our second team to look at is Chelsea, the only other side to actually win a Premier League title in this save. They've won 2. Massimo Allegri is in charge. If we take a look at how their managerial process has gone, Tuchel ended up leaving in July 2022 to take the Manchester United job at the time. He's now back at Spurs, so we will see him again, but if we take a look, he's had a very interesting career path through this past 10 years. Massimo Allegri came in 2022, and he is now approaching 9 years in charge of Chelsea. He'll hit that mark right at the start of this upcoming season. It's been a very, very impressive run from Allegri. If we take a look at competitions again, we see how many Champions Leagues is that? It's a lot. Tuchel won that one. So they have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Champions Leagues in the simulation. Bearing in mind they were defending champions from 2021 as well, which was only their second Champions League title. But under Allegri, 5 titles, 2 Premier League crowns as well, with plenty of second places under Allegri. In fact, 6 times they have come second in the Premier League. They've also added 2 more Club World Cups, along with the 3rd place in there as well. They have added, how many FA Cups? 2 FA Cups, 1 under Tuchel, 2 under Allegri. 5 Super Cups in there as well, which is extremely impressive, though obviously with so many Champions League crowns, it's kind of to be expected. They've added a couple League Cups and 3 Community Shields in there as well. So a lot of silverware at Chelsea, despite only 2 Premier League titles in the 10 simulated seasons. We take a look at their general section. We'll see Allegri in charge. Lukaku is still the captain. We'll take a quick peek and see if he's retiring. He's not, but his contract expires at the end of the month, and he's only listed as an impact sub. Now 38 years of age, I think that is it for Romelu Lukaku. Is now the top scorer in Premier League history and is nearing 100 goals for Belgium. Lukaku has had an unbelievable career. You see, Reece James is currently listed as vice-captain. Will he become the captain for at least 1 year? He's got 1 more year on his deal. So there's a chance that he could become the captain of Chelsea for 1 year at least. And then, of course, the main man himself. Top scorer, most assists, most player of the matches, key player, Kylian Mbappe. Currently actually injured, which is not ideal. But he also only has 1 more year on his contract and is now 32, will turn 33 during the season. So there is a slight interest here that Chelsea might be on a big turnaround over the next year or 2. I did look at that, didn't I? That was the Champions League final. So we take a look at how the Chelsea squad lines up at the moment. Again, we'll go by appearances, and it's actually Matthijs de Ligt, who was in his first season with Chelsea, who makes the most appearances. Again, another player with just 1 year left on his deal. This could be very interesting after the end of the upcoming season. Came in for £52 million from Juventus, had a heck of a first season in the Premier League. Is obviously very experienced, will turn 32 just before the start of the Premier League season. We see Kylian Mbappe with 56 appearances and one off the bench with 30 goals and 20 assists. 50 goal involvements for a 32-year-old Mbappe. Not too shabby. We saw Trubin, who was in his second season as Chelsea's first-choice keeper after his move from Shakhtar. He's played pretty well. We still see the likes of Kai Havertz, Reece James, Ben Chilwell is still getting plenty of games. We still see Lukaku, obviously, who we have mentioned. But then we've got a few different guys. Interesting that Wesley Fofana actually viewed as a backup. Obviously, De Ligt came in. They do have Matsumoto, who is actually injured and has been for a little bit. But they then list Franco Manaka as their next centre-back. That is interesting. I'm not even sure I remember this guy coming in. This is why I'm doing this video, because I'm able to find some players that I'm like, I had no idea you were here. Franco Manaka from San Lorenzo back in 2025. This is 6 years ago. He's played incredibly this season. He is starting to get some game time, finally. It's taken quite a long time, but he is listed as an elite midfielder. Chelsea seem to be giving him some time at the back. You see, Gabriel Jesus was actually here, making 28 substitute appearances. His contract expires, though, alongside Lukaku's. But I think what I'm going to take from this, actually, we see Lukaku is retiring. He's going to retire at the end of the month. So he finishes his career as a Chelsea player, top scorer in Premier League history. Congratulations, Lukaku, on an insane career in this. But we also see the likes of Camavinga. Actually, interestingly, they've got rid of Ander Valencia. He's heading to Atalanta. Likes of Pedro Neto, Vinicius Jr. It's a very, very good team, but one that has not been quite able to topple Manchester City for at least a little while. It was a third place finish in the previous season for Manchester United. So we take a look firstly. They're still at Old Trafford, still this around 75,000 capacity mark. We take a look at the managers that Manchester United have gone through. We'll hide caretaker. We see Ralph Rangnick left the role in 2022, as obviously will happen in real life. He was actually replaced by Thomas Tuchel. The day I record this, Erik ten Hag has just been announced as the new Manchester United manager. So, slight difference there. Tuchel only lasted 155 days before he was sacked on Boxing Day in 2022, replaced by Zinedine Zidane, who got nearly 7 years in charge at Manchester United before being sacked. Nick Cox actually led the team through the rest of that season, but Mauricio Pochettino has just gone through his first season in charge of the Old Trafford club, and he gets a third place finish, so not a bad first year all in all for Pochettino. We take a look at competition history for Manchester United in this save. We're not going to find much. They were the runners-up in the Premier League in the very first season of the simulation. And they were actually quite close to the title from what I can remember. They've had 3 straight third-place finishes in the Premier League, which is their, second best behind the very first season. But outside of that, they've had 1 UEFA Super Cup runners-up position. They've won the Europa League twice and come runner-up in the competition once in 2026. But outside of that, they've won a couple of Papa John's trophies. Their under-23s have won more than them. So it's not exactly a return to the big time for Manchester United. They're still waiting to get to the top. We still see the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford here, though we do see Bukayo Saka, a player we have mentioned a couple of times through the save. Manchester United actually did win the Europa League this year, from what I can remember. I have probably just literally read that in the trophies thing, yeah. So they have won a trophy this year under Mauricio Pochettino. We can see their Finnish history as well. We got obviously the second that we've previously mentioned, but then dropped all the way down to 8th in the very next season, which was, well, still is, their worst season for at least 20 years. It was a very bad one. Then they kind of bounced and couldn't break into the Champions League for that 4-year span. But the past couple of years, they have actually got back into the Champions League positions. That one season under Zidane and Nick Cox, who actually ended up bringing them all the way back to 3rd. And then obviously Pochettino this previous season. If we take a look at their squad at the moment, we actually see that Alexander Nubel had the most appearances, unsurprisingly, as a goalkeeper. And then Josko Vardiol, actually the outfield player, with the most starts anyway. Szoboszlai did have more appearances, as did Jadon Sancho, who is still here as well. So you see, yeah, I mean, the likes of Sancho, Rashford, Bruno Fernandes still here. How is Bruno Fernandes set to still be here? He is. He's set to have one more season. Will turn 37 at the beginning of September. So I think Fernandes' career is coming to a close, but he's still picking up 10 goals, 13 assists, which is certainly not bad. We see some other names going on in here. We see Max Aarons, who I believe was in his first season with Manchester United. He was. They spent £66 million on a guy that played 11 Premier League games and only 14 starts in all competitions. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but okay. If we look further up towards some other names, we see Nicola Ravella in here. We see Dodo, who has been a regular right-back for them. He's now 32, and with 1 year left on his contract. Seems to be a recurring theme with Manchester United and Chelsea. We see some other guys who have made some bit part appearances, like Yunus Musa, Alexander Isak. Even, where's he gone? Where's Yusufa Moukoko gone? There he is. He's all the way down here. Just 13 starts, 3 off the bench. Did net 8 times, though. But it's not really happening for Moukoko, and he is wanted by clubs in Europe, so we may well be saying goodbye to Yusufa Moukoko before he really makes an impact. We see Ed Hewson's another player we've mentioned a few times in save, but this is how Manchester United currently look. They look pretty set for the next season at least, but I'm not sure they're going to be competing with Man City or Chelsea next season anyway. 4th place ended up going to Arsenal, still playing at the Emirates, still just over that 60,000 capacity, and Jurgen Klopp currently in charge. We take a look at the manager history for them. Mikel Arteta actually stayed with the club until 2026 before he ended up resigning and becoming the Spain national team manager. Little update on Mikel Arteta. Now managing Real Sociedad, has been for the past couple of seasons, and they have been very, very successful in Spain. Just out of interest, 3rd last season, a couple of 2nd places as well. One in Arteta's first season? No. One in literally this season just gone. Arteta gets Real Sociedad 2nd place in La Liga. Haven't quite won a title yet, but that was just a little side piece out of interest. Luis Enrique then came in 2026 as they kept the Spanish theme going. He lasted 2.5 years before being sacked in February 2029. And then there was a little bit of a caretaker period, but Jurgen Klopp has now been at the Emirates for 2 full seasons. And if we take a look how he's got on in those 2 seasons, it's not well. 7th in the first season. Obviously, a lot better this time round with that 4th place finish. Ended up coming in after Arsenal's worst finish for, well, again, over 20 years when they finished down in 10th. Again, some familiar names are still here in Emil Smith-Rowe and Aaron Ramsdale. We will take a look at competitions, see if I can remember if they've won anything. There's been no top 3 Premier League finishes at all. They have had 2 runners-up in the FA Cup, but no more FA Cups either, as well as 2 runners-up positions in the Europa League. Arsenal have been a little bit always the bridesmaid, never the bride, though they did win the Europa Conference League this season, yes. Do remember that one. They've also had 3 Carabao Cup final defeats. So it's been very hard luck on Arsenal, because they've actually only won 1 trophy, and it was this season. They had gone a very, very long time. Was that 11 years without a trophy? The 2020 FA Cup looks like it was the last one that they had won. Prior to this season, plenty of runners-up spots. So it's good that they finally got a trophy in the cabinet after an 11-year wait. If we take a look at the Arsenal squad, we see Aaron Ramsdale with 60 appearances. Did any other goalkeeper play? Luke Southwood came off the bench once. And Joe Bursick, actually, I didn't know Joe Bursick was here, actually. Made 4 appearances with 2 off the bench. Abel Ruiz, we saw him starring for Brighton for a few seasons. Just a generic backup here at Arsenal, though. Tammy Abraham's still going, made the occasional appearance as well. He is already set to join PSG at the end of his contract, so good luck with that one, Tammy. We see Martin Odegaard is still here, right up at the top. Mason Mount's actually been at Arsenal for quite a while now. He's actually been at Arsenal nearly longer than he was at Chelsea, which, no, probably not true. He was probably at Chelsea as a kid as well. And that's also a 10-year span already. That was a very stupid comment. But Mount's still a regular in the Arsenal squad, playing well without really racking up statistics. He's certainly not scoring as much as he was in his first 2 seasons. He did have his best assist season, though, last year, so some things are still going okay for Mason. Now 32 years of age. Ooh, too far. We see this is a player that we've become quite familiar with in Bjekovic, the Serbian right-back. It does seem like the best new-gen players that we've had through in this have been fullbacks, which is actually kind of strange, because Football Manager, normally, that is the one position that is really difficult to find. But Arsenal proving that, Arsenal and Manchester City proving that you can certainly find them if you try hard enough. We see Martinelli still here. Yasser Asprilla was a player that I was very up on when he was at Fulham. Started well with Arsenal, but I feel like he's sort of tailed off a little bit. I mean, not too badly. He's had back-to-back 9-goal seasons and 6 assists, which is his tied second best at Arsenal. So he's certainly not doing badly, but it feels like he's appeared a bit less than initially. I'm trying to see if there's any other current Arsenal players here. Doesn't appear to be, but we see Maxence Lacroix. David Pena is an interesting one. A 20-year-old French striker, wonder kid, netted 12 times in his first proper season with Arsenal. Obviously, he had the 29-30 season, but only appeared 14 times in the Premier League. He has 33 appearances this time, with 12 goals, so not too bad, actually. Looking a little further down, you can see likes of Marco Cana, Tommaso Pobega, and Jonathan Ikone. So there are some familiar names in this Arsenal side as well, but that will cover them for now. We drop down another spot to find Liverpool, who miss out on Champions League football for, I believe, the first time in this save. We look to the 21-22 season, they only came 4th that year, and then there have been 3 4th-place finishes in a row prior to this season, where they actually do finish 5th, so it will only be Europa League football for Liverpool for the very first time in the save, and the first time they haven't finished top 4 since the 2015-16 season, when they finished 8th. So it's been quite a while, but Stefano Pioli can only take them to the Europa League. If we look at the management situation for Liverpool through the seasons, we see Jurgen Klopp, as mentioned, ended up leaving in 2023 to take the Manchester City job. Guardiola then came in pretty much in a swap deal. It wasn't officially a swap deal, but it kind of was. Guardiola ended up doing 3 seasons with Liverpool before leaving he actually left to take the Juventus job in the end. And as a little update, Pep Guardiola, England manager. Because why not? He's done everything else. He might as well try and win a major tournament. I don't believe he won one with Spain. He might have. Could be wrong on that front. It turns out, I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. Spain did win the 2028 Euros, but Guardiola only took charge in 2028, and I believe that was after the Euros. So I think he didn't win any major tournaments with Spain. He's going to try to do it with England, though. But again, that's a side bit. Stefano Pioli ended up coming in 2026. He has now had nearly 5 years in charge. Just the one cup. And that was the FA Cup in 2029. So not a whole lot of success going for Liverpool here. We see Pep Guardiola's successes. He won 5 trophies in the end. A Carabao Cup, a Europa League, an FA Cup, a Champions League, and the Community Shield. So he actually won 5 different trophies, which is quite impressive. And then Jurgen Klopp, in his time, just a Carabao Cup in the two simulation seasons that he was here. Obviously won more than that in real life. If we take a look at competitions, we can fully see these different trophies. Obviously, they have added a 7th Champions League title in 2025. Premier League, 3 second-place finishes are their best so far in the simulation. They have won 2 FA Cups. As you go down, you can see a couple other things like a Europa League in here. You can see a couple of Carabao Cups and the one Community Shield as well. So if we nip to the general screen, we see Trent Alexander-Arnold, still a Liverpool player, quite unsurprisingly. Will turn 33, and again another player in the last year of his contract. The 2032 summer could be absolutely insane, and we could see a heck of a lot of change. We're getting into their squad. Interestingly, Pascal Traore, with the most appearances on the season, was the goalkeeper that they ended up buying from Lyon after Alisson just upped and retired at the beginning of last season. Harvey Elliott, actually with the most appearances for an outfield player. He's still just 28 years old. He has become a real star for Liverpool, albeit in a side that's missed Champions League football. With 13 goals and 6 assists, very impressive from him. Pedro Pretel is a player we have mentioned quite a bit last season. Ended up with 13 assists in just the Premier League, with 7 goals as well is pretty impressive for a central midfielder. 15 and 18 he totaled in the end. So real star power in Pedro Pretel. As mentioned, Trent Alexander-Arnold's here. Ansu Fati had an okay season with 17 goals. Joe Gomez. Actually, I was not fully aware that Joe Gomez was still here. Another player with 1 year left. But over 300 Premier League appearances now for Liverpool. Joe Gomez has had a pretty underrated career, actually. He's only just turned 34. So he'll be 34 for pretty much the whole season. Heck of a time for Joe Gomez. Hudson Edouard as well, being the kind of number 1 striker for Liverpool, is a very strange situation. Has had some good seasons with Liverpool in the 7 years that he's been here now. I didn't realise it was that long. Did have a one-off 20-goal season. 14 last time out. Is now 33. Yeah, I never quite understood that one. There's Martin as well, who actually was one of the early new gens that we first saw come to the Premier League. £40 million from Villarreal. Yeah, I remember him being one of the first real standout new gen players. 9 goals actually a season or so ago. It's not too bad there. And actually his most assists in the previous season, so he's certainly getting better. So like Ruben Neves as familiar names, Sebastian Bornau. Fabinho was still here, but he will be retiring once the season ticks over. So happy retirement to you, Fabinho. And Bryce Samba is a very interesting one. 37 years of age. His contract will expire. has been at Liverpool for 4 seasons, making 3 Premier League appearances, and actually played a blinder in his 1 appearance. His last appearance for Liverpool, and he plays an absolute blinder. What a guy. Moving down again and finding Tottenham Hotspur. Thomas Tuchel in charge, as we have already mentioned in this video. So we'll kind of just briefly go over the managers, because we have already discussed the Tuchel situation. Antonio Conte only lasted till December of the quick simulation season. And then Bielsa only spent a year and a half at Spurs before retiring. And then the Tuchel saga happened. But it's been an interesting spell for Spurs, who have also had interim managers twice in Paul Bracewell and Dean Rastrick, as well as Marcelo Gallardo and Roberto Mancini in there as well. Mancini actually lasted over 5 years before he was sacked, so he did a pretty good job. But Tuchel's just ended his first season back in charge of Spurs, and he wasn't sacked this time. He's gone further than 157 days, so well done, Mr. Tuchel. We take a look at competitions. I don't think Spurs have won anything. They've had 1 third place in the Premier League in 2028. No, they did win an FA Cup. Okay, I can't exactly remember certain trophies. They did win an FA Cup. They've had a 2nd place in the Europa Conference League in the Quick Sim season, actually, as well as a League Cup runner-up as well, and a Community Shield runner-up too. Yeah, that is it for Spurs. So it's just the 1 FA Cup, which is actually their 9th in club history. So they're pretty up there on FA Cup wins, to be fair. But that is their only trophy of the save so far. That was under Mancini. If we look at their positions throughout the save, it's been going backwards in the past 3 years anyway. They have actually risen from 9th to 6th. So Tuchel's done an okay job in that respect. Best finish of 3rd, as we mentioned, but no 4th place finishes outside of that. Just the 1 Champions League finish in 2027-28. Frank Kessie is captain, by the way, and Arthur Thiat, who is a player that I did mention when he joined Spurs quite a long time ago. 8 years ago now, or 7.5. He joined in January, so he's actually been really, really good for Spurs, to be fair to him. He's been a very, very good player. Maybe someone that I haven't rated highly enough. If we look at the senior squad for Tottenham by appearances, we find that Alvaro Fernandez is actually the first choice keeper. It's been a very strange 6 years for Alvaro Fernandez, where he's been kind of in and out of goal. You see there in 27-28, maybe it looked like his time was up at Spurs, and then he had a couple of bad seasons. But to be fair to him, this 30-31 season, he has actually recovered reasonably well. He ends up with the most appearances, but only just over Thomas Ruiz Diaz, who again proves that you can find fullbacks in Football Manager. Another elite-level new-gen fullback, and he's 26. So again, you can tell that we are getting through this save. Went from River Plate to Sporting, and just completed his first full season with Tottenham after joining in January 2030. Pretty good season from him, actually. If we look a little bit further, Luka Sucic is a player we've mentioned a couple of times. Boubacar Kamara as well. Now, Adam Hlozek is a player I'd sort of forgotten about, because he was signed so early on. And at the time, I do remember mentioning that he was potentially Harry Kane's replacement of the future. And I think that has come to fruition eventually, kind of around 2026, 2027 area. And he has just had his best season in the Premier League with 12 goals. But he hasn't kind of exploded onto the scene as much as Spurs would have liked. He's certainly not replaced Harry Kane brilliantly. 57 Premier League goals in 9 years is not great. Maybe he's still got time, though. He's certainly 28. He may have a little bit more time to break out. We see Noni Madueke. We see... Actually, Harvey Barnes is leaving again. Harvey Barnes is going to Real Madrid. Okay. Well, some interesting names like Ben Godfrey, Thierry Small. You see, Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, who is a Spanish keeper. He is actually Sergei Milinkovic-Savic's brother. That's a new one on me. I didn't know he had a brother. By the way, Milinkovic-Savic, over 500 league games for Lazio at this point. Has never left, so that's a heck of a legend right there. But that's new on me. I did not know he had a brother. That's some interesting information. But standouts, I mean, Hozek being your top scorer with 13 goals is why you are only 6th. But likes of Luka Sucic has been pretty decent in the save. Thomas Ruiz Diaz has been a real breakout. And probably Frank Kessie, just as, I mean, as solid as he ever is, really. Is 34, though, and has one more year on his contract, as I've said way too many times here. A pretty fun team to talk about now, though, and it's Sheffield United, who are still under Paul Heckingbottom, who has been in charge since the start of the save. He has not moved, and he has been absolutely sensational as Sheffield United boss. Now 10 years in charge of the club. I mean, there's no real point taking up competitions, although they have had one runners-up spot in the FA Cup and one runners-up in the Europa League. So they've been pretty close to silverware, but none coming. But the proof of how good they've been is just here. You see the very first season there, won the championship, up they came. Impressed with a 10th place finish in the first season. Bit shaky for a couple of years, but then you just see here, like 9th, and they went backwards a little bit, 8th. Then they had that 5th, which was the campaign they qualified for the Europa League, and they made the final of it, then just missed Europe the year after that. But they do make Europe again for the upcoming season, and they'll be playing Europa Conference League football, which I genuinely believe they can win that competition. They are kind of the new challengers to the so-called Big Six, who have been the Big Six in this save most of the time. But if we look at Sheffield United's squad currently, we see most appearances, if we ignore the lone guy at the top, was actually David Raya. And this has been a theme with Sheffield United, in that they haven't really had one keeper for more than a season or two. They've gone through quite a lot of different keepers. And, David Raya may well get one more year to bring up his 2. And then they'll probably need another new keeper. That's been a general theme. But a couple of real I'd say there's probably 4 real standout players in this Sheffield United squad in the past couple of years. Shola Shortire, you can see 20 assists in all competitions this season. He has been absolutely superb since joining Sheffield United 3 seasons ago. You see his 7.33 in this most recent Premier League season, and the most assists in the entire Premier League with 16. So Shortire's been superb. Martin Satriano, a player I'm not familiar with, youngster at Inter Milan at the start of the save, came in at Augsburg for just 3.3 million, where he was absolutely superb in one Bundesliga season, netting nearly 20, and then you just see this consistency. Funnily enough, he actually had his best scoring season in the season he played the least games, but he's hit 20 every single season. He's just been absolutely incredible. He's now 30. So he's hit that mark of where FM players start to think, oh, might get rid of him. But he's just playing so well. He is wanted, though, by AC Milan. If Sheffield United can get towards that 98 million amount, my word, that's going to be a huge transfer. We see Sander Berg is actually someone that I really haven't mentioned in this save too much, other than the one time he went in goal like 3 seasons ago. I feel bad for that, and that's all I've mentioned, because he's been really, really good for Sheffield United as well in the save. Has averaged over a 7 every single year. So again, another player who is wanted, actually by Chelsea and Man United, which is quite interesting. But they've listed him as not for sale, so we may well see Sander Berge still here. Mark. Is it time to talk about Mark? I mean, he's pretty good, isn't he? Chelsea and Leipzig interested in him. Certainly a very good player. Had definitely a breakout season this year compared to his first season after joining from Manchester City. He's okay. I don't think he's really shone yet. He's only 25 though, so he's still definitely got a few years to prove himself. Ethan Ampadu, another player I really haven't mentioned, has actually come back to Sheffield United. If you remember, he took in a loan spell the year that Sheffield United were relegated. He's had a bit of a weird career actually since he left Chelsea. Werder Bremen, Juventus, and then Sheffield United, where he's been solid without being extraordinary. But the couple of the guys that I do want to talk about are Benjamin Anor, who is a new gen player who came through at Crystal Palace, who Sheffield United took a really big shot on, to be honest. I wasn't completely convinced. I knew he was a good player, but £40 million was very, very big amount of money for him. Well, obviously, shone season 1 with 10 assists, quieting down the second season, but this third season he stepped right back up again, averaging a 7, 6 goals, 7 assists. He's an interesting player in that he can play wing back, but I think he's either been playing right wing or right mid, actually. I want to check. He's been playing right mid. Another team playing 4-4-2 and succeeding. Man City do it, and Sheffield United do it. I'm just saying, 4-4-2 is apparently the new meta. But the other guy I wanted to mention is Daniel Jebbison, who is now actually Canadian and got 14 and 16. I can't exactly remember when that happened. It wasn't too long ago. Another player who is wanted, and it's Painim. But you can see why he's so good. 6'3", ridiculous physicals, very good finishing, and decent enough heading. And they have actually got him for 3 more years. So they have locked him down, which is good. But you saw the seasons in here, these sort of 4 seasons where Jebbison was at the peak of his powers, has dropped off since, with just 6 last season. Satriano has sort of become the superstar forward in this team now. But they do play 2 up front, so I think Jebbison just had an off year. But if Sheffield United chose now to sell him, they could get some pretty good money. So likes of Amad Diallo in here, Tyreek Mitchell. And then something I have mentioned as well with Sheffield United is their use of older players. So the likes of Christian Pulisic and Nico Elvedi and Nordi Mukiele, they have used some older players just to fill out the squad and to give some experience to the other guys like Mark and Shortire and Jebbison and Anor. They've mixed it in pretty well, and even Diallo as well can be included in that. But they've just mixed in some guys, even like Mert Mulder being an older fullback. And it's just worked for them really, really well. So they're the one team that I'm just super intrigued to see how far they can get. Now that we're out of sort of the teams that have been winning consistent trophies or consistently finishing higher up, I think we probably will start to get through the teams a little bit quicker. And we do start with Newcastle, who obviously, at the beginning of the save, have an awful lot of money. We take a look at their manager history. Only 3 different managers. Eddie Howe lasted until 2026, where he was sacked. Simone Inzaghi lasting 2.5 seasons before he was removed. And for the past 2.5 years, it's been Alfred Schroeder, ex-Leeds manager. Did actually take Leeds into the Champions League one season. Hasn't quite hit those heights with Newcastle yet, but the chance is certainly still there. If we look at their competition history, it's a pretty quick one. There's been 1 Europa League runners-up medal, and they've won the Europa Conference League twice, and also 3 times they've been the runners-up in the Carabao, so could have done with that trophy at least once, but they have missed out on that. If we look at the general, we see their past league positions. They have not actually finished in the top 4 in any season in this save. They've finished 5th twice. Never broken the top 4, even with splashing quite a lot of money in this save. And their team is going to look extremely different to how it looks at the start. Tariq Lamptey being the highest appearance maker. You can see a lot of green and a lot of sevens, but only an 8th place finish. You see like some Callum Hudson-Odoi actually being a regular, which is quite interesting. Anthony, who they brought in, I think this season just gone. No, wow, okay. Anthony was a while ago. Some of the seasons mix into one. There's actually, goal scoring wise, has been reasonably decent, to be fair to him. See, someone like David Ayala, he was 2 seasons ago. He actually came in from Portland Timbers to Chelsea. He's bounced around a little bit and actually, played his first proper season with Newcastle. Not too bad in his 23 Premier League appearances. We see some other guys now. We see Nikola Milenkovic further down. They've got quite a lot of guys who didn't really appear at all, which is quite interesting. Andre Onana, just the 11 games for him, with Ergusan Sakir actually keeping his starting role. So I don't really know why Onana and Mendy ended up here. That was a very weird time. I still don't know why that happened, but it did. But like Matteo Viti as well, who came in from Chelsea. They've got an interesting side, and someone like Roger Ibanez. They may need to start another bit of a rebuild at Newcastle just to see what they can do to try and break the top 4. Our next team to check out is Aston Villa, a side that, especially early on in the save, I really thought was going to push on and be a regular European contender. Whilst they've kind of contended for Europe a little bit, I don't know. Part of me expected more from Villa that hasn't really happened. We take a look at their management history. It's been just the 3 managers. Steven Gerrard was there for 4 seasons up to March 2025 when he was removed. He was replaced by Gareth Southgate, who had been out of work for about 9 months after leaving England. He only lasted just slightly under a year in charge before he was sacked. And it's actually been Niko Kovac for just over 5 years now, who's kind of just been consistently like 9th or 10th. It's not been particularly exciting. There's been no trophies whatsoever, as you can see here, so we don't need to look. Well, we'll take a look and see if we can remember if they've had any runners-up spots. They did, yeah. They made the 2029 FA Cup final where they lost to Liverpool, if my memory serves me correctly. But other than that, that is the only final they have made. So they were close to silverware, but didn't quite pull it off. If we look at how their seasons have gone, like I mentioned, they looked like they were going to do so well, especially after this 6th place finish in 22-23. But ever since then, it tailed off very quickly. And then they sort of slowly worked their way back, and now they've kind of got stuck in this kind of 8th to 10th range. Because as mentioned, Kovac has now been here for a while, but if we take a look at their squad, we see, ignore the loan players, but Daniel Peretz, their new keeper, who was in his first season, an Israeli goalkeeper actually, that came in from Malaga. Maccabi Tel Aviv, if you want to know where he starts, if you're interested in picking him up in your saves. 50 goals conceded, but an average rating of 7 is not too bad a first season from him. See the likes of Moise Keane and Brenner being the 2 forwards, again in a 4-4-2. Seems to be very popular here at the start of the 2030s. Who would have thought? We see the likes of Keikai's here, though he is wanted by Arsenal and Real Madrid. So again, sort of Villa's tactic has been to bring in well-known players, like young, well-known players, and to try and spin them for a big profit. And initially it was working, but it's kind of petered out into not a whole lot. And they've now got some guys that are definitely older. So the likes of Noah Katterback, likes of Moise Keane, Brenner, Oliver Skipp, Keikai, all these kind of players that, even William Swedberg, he's still only 27, but they're players that they maybe were trying to flip for profits, but they're still here. So they've not really been able to compete for Europe whilst not really getting any money in either. You see someone... I did notice this was the vice-captain. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name, to be honest, because I'm going to get it horribly wrong. It was a £34 million signing a couple of years ago, where he's been okay. But interesting that he is the vice-captain. 16 leadership will do that. But I think my overall summary for Aston Villa, as I mentioned so far, is promising but strangely disappointing. We then move on to Leicester City, who are another side that have actually a returning manager in Arne Slot. He has been here twice. That's not the right one. That's what we wanted. Although, actually, new chairperson is quite interesting. No, only a few months ago, though it was a promotion from within, so not a whole lot changing there, really. We take a look at manager history. There's been quite a few, and mostly because there have been sackings. Brendan Rodgers was gone by December of the very first season. Paulo Fonseca ended up replacing him. He only lasted a year. And then, yeah, this is the point where Arne Slot came in, did approaching 3 years in charge before being sacked. The De Zerbi era was weird because Leicester were doing okay, and then he left to manage Bournemouth, who got relegated. And then Viktor Goncharenko lasted barely any time at all. Ruben Baraja got nearly 3 years before he was sacked, and now it's back around to Arne Slot again. We did see Baraja did win 2 League Cups. That was in a row, as you can see, 29 and 30. And then De Zerbi actually won a Europa League. So Leicester did play Champions League football once in this save. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers was the FA Cup. That was in real life. We take a look at competitions. As mentioned, there have been a few trophies for Leicester in this save. There was a runners-up in the UEFA Super Cup after they won the Europa League. And outside of that, a couple of League Cups as well, which takes them up to a grand total of 5. We take a look at the general. We see that Wilfred Ndidi is still here, key player, captain, star man still for Leicester, even 9 years on now from where we're at in real life. It's been a bit up and down for Leicester. Like, they've been regular top half. There was a 5th place finish that one season. There was also a very bad 15th place finish early on in the save, so they have relatively recovered from where they actually were starting out in here. If we take a look at the squad, we see the regular keeper for quite a while now has been Juan Musso. James Justin still here, Patson Daka still here, netting 18 times. And Wilfred Ndidi still here, so a few familiar names for Leicester fans. James Maddison actually still here as well, though only a squad player at this point. We see the likes of Armando Broja is an interesting one. Though he actually... he got 14. I was looking at Aaron Hickey. I looked across and saw 0 and got very confused. Broja got 14, so not too bad from him. Maxence Kakare has been a pretty good player for Leicester through the save as well. He is now 31, but he has been very solid, to be fair to him. And likes of Ali Rayner here as well, a 27-year-old Syrian centre-back, which is quite interesting. Listed as an important player, and actually wanted by Liverpool, so maybe there's a big transfer coming there. We also see some familiar names in Tino Livramento and Brennan Johnson as well. And then Andrew Priest, kind of the new-gen starlet. Even though he's 24, I say starlet. He's not the youngest. Is making regular-ish appearances for Leicester, but is now wanted by Spurs, so could be making a move there. Outside of that, Ferland Mendy's here. That pretty much covers Leicester, though. We keep working our way down, and we actually stumble across our first side that has had a season in the Championship. Wolves, now with Frank Lampard in charge. If we take a look at their managerial history, there's been quite a few managers. There's been a lot of sackings, the likes of Andrea Pirlo, Ruud Gullit, Postecoglou randomly, Eddie Howe. And Frank Lampard, who's now had 175 days in charge after ditching Blackburn, I believe. Yes, he ditched Blackburn to take the Wolves job back in December. Gets Wolves a pretty respectable 11th place finish. If we look at this, it was Wolves' second season, so they've had a 12th and an 11th since their return to the top flight. As mentioned, there was that one relegation in 2027-28. Bounced back by winning the championship title, though. Their best finish in the save was 9th place in 2022-23. It's been weird for Wolves. Another side who, well, at the beginning, I was saying that Wolves and Everton, for the first few seasons, just did nothing. They were coming like 11th and 12th every season. Nothing was happening. And then Wolves just slowly kept dropping, and eventually they did actually go. But since they went, they've recovered, they've built themselves back up, and they are now actually doing reasonably well. So if we take a look at their competitions, the only trophy that we're going to find for them is the Sky Bet Championship in 2029. No other finals or anything to look at there. When we take a look at Wolves' squad, we see Etienne Green as their regular keeper. There was actually outdone by Jaminton Campas in appearances. Campas has been, was reasonably decent in his first season in the Premier League, especially for a South American player coming in, age 30, for his first season just in Europe in general. That is a very, very good season from him, to be fair. You see, João Resende, who has actually been a really good forward for Wolves, is still only 28 years of age, so they've certainly got a few more years to get out of him yet. And we see 20 goals last season, 13 the season before that, and even 14 in the season they got relegated. So he's been a really, really good player. I'm surprised there's no interest in him, to be honest. So like Jakob Moder, Jamie Shackleton and Chris Mepham in here as well. Morgan Gibbs-White is a player who for a good 2 or 3 seasons was really standing out. He was creating so many chances and just wasn't getting any credit for anything that was happening because nobody was scoring. However, there is now João Resende to do some of the scoring, and now he's not creating, which is very strange. If we actually look for most assists, it was Jakob Moder with 10. So he seems to have taken on that mantle, though he is 32, so they are going to need a replacement soon. Well, sooner rather than later. So Ivan Toney's retiring. That's quite an interesting one. You see some other names down here as well, a few keepers, Guillermo Rana. Mario Hermoso is also retiring. So some replacements definitely needed. Joe Willett kind of bit part. There's certainly some interesting names in this Wolves squad. We then hit on to Southampton, another side who actually spent just the 2 seasons in the Championship after getting relegated very early on. You see, the Quick Sim season, they actually got 6th in Europa League football. And then they were relegated the very next season, which was shocking. But then 2 seasons away before they returned by winning the Championship. And they've just been gradually rising throughout the seasons. This actually being the first season that they've fallen down the table since their return. Actually, that's a lie. No, it's not. That is level. I thought that went down a little bit. But they actually had an 11th last year. It's a 12th this season. Now going into their 7th straight Premier League campaign, I believe. And currently under Veljko Paunovic. You see, considering they're a side that actually did go down at one point, they've only gone through 3 managers. Ralph Hasenhüttl was gone mid-2022, which was the season that Southampton were eventually relegated. They did stick with Roberto Martinez through their 2 seasons at the second tier, though. And he stuck with them all the way through to 2029 before he left for Brighton and got relegated. And then he went to West Ham. Now he's at Blackburn, where he's just been relegated again. So Martinez not choosing his teams very well. But that did mean that Veljko Paunovic could come in. And he's now just completed his 2nd full season in charge. And a couple of mid-table finishes, which is certainly not bad. The only trophy, that one championship title in I've already forgotten, 2025. If we take a look, Joe Rodon, currently the captain. He's got 1 more year left. And then we actually see Abdou Diallo as the vice-captain. If we take a look at how their squad has panned out so far, Ben Jackson, most appearances. Well, this is a player that I don't remember seeing before. Did get 12 Premier League goals this season, whilst not averaging the greatest rating. But came in from Liverpool for £16.5 million. Played the most games out of anyone. In fact, played every single Premier League game. Started all but one. Had a pretty decent year with 12 goals. That's certainly not bad. Elias Solberg is a player who's been very, very good in the Premier League. He's had a lot of chances created and key passes without necessarily racking up the highest amount of assists. His best season is 8. He's honestly, the way he's been in the stats, he could have been higher than that. Has had a 9-goal season as well, actually. He could be a big money move. AC Milan interested in him. If Southampton want to try and make some big money, Elias Solberg might be the guy. And then we see this guy, again, not even going to try, who came over from Arsenal, actually. So Southampton kind of doing that tactic of, let's pick up players who are bit part in the big clubs and see if they can do it for us. And on the most part for these past couple seasons, they have. It's a pretty decent tactic from Southampton. We've also seen Osam Sarawi be really good as well. A couple of Norwegian players in this side have been very impressive. John Zamora has been reasonably decent at the back as well. And then they actually picked up Dominik Livakovic from Stade Rennes after his brief stint at Newcastle. Although Livakovic is leaving, because he is only listed as the backup. Who's the keeper then? I'm not actually sure. It's this guy. Okay. Came in January and actually did take over the job. So Gaetan Kuke, a Belgian keeper who's come in from Barcelona, will be the starting goalkeeper for Southampton. At least for now. See, Dennis Zakari is leaving. Matty Cash is leaving. Will Hughes is retiring. So there is some turnover in this Southampton team. Dele Alli also here, by the way. Thinks he's been replaced. You are 35, Dele. I mean, how's he done at Southampton? He's been bang average. Yeah, I don't think Dele Alli's going to be a regular here, but there's not really too many standout players in this Southampton team, but those that have needed to be good have been relatively good. Our next team is Everton, and they are a side who I did mention have moved stadium. They're now in the Bramley-Moore Dock Stadium, which is planned, so it did go ahead. I don't know if it goes ahead every single time in FM. I imagine it probably does. But a near 53,000 capacity stadium. And honestly, it's been closer to seeing Championship football than Champions League football. It's not been a great time for Everton. So if we take a look at their general stats here with the league positions, we can see their best season was the Quick Sim season, where they finished 10th. And since then, it's been nothing in the top half, including near relegation in 2028-29 when they finished 16th. And I think there was a chance that they could have gone down that season, even to the final day. It was unlikely, but they did stay up. If we look manager-wise, Frank Lampard ended up staying until 2024 when he was sacked. And then Phil Neville actually got a pretty long time in charge, as he got 4.5 years before he was sacked. And then Gareth Southgate's not had a good time in the Premier League. Villa and Everton, he did not have fun. He was not there for long. And he was eventually replaced by Gabriel Heinze, former Manchester United defender. Obviously Real Madrid and PSG in there as well. So he came in for his first job in the Premier League. And so far he's been doing okay. He's stabilised Everton. He's made them not a relegation candidate anymore. If we look at competitions, I don't believe they've made any finals of anything. No, they haven't. They've won an FA Youth Cup. That counts for anything. But outside of that, nothing going for Everton. And so we can look at their squad, where Dominic Calvert-Lewin, at 34 years of age, is still very much the main man. Over 500 Premier League appearances for Everton. By the way, 198 goals. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is 2 away from 200 Premier League goals, which would put him 4th all time or something like that. That's absolutely insane. Calvert-Lewin could be around 4th or 5th all time in the goal-scoring Premier League charts. You see, the goalkeeper is Robert Sanchez, obviously the Brighton keeper in real life. You see some other guys, Enoch Aguier. David Zimmer is a Czech centre-back who's played quite a lot in his first season. Dean Green, yes, that's a player that I'm pretty sure we've seen before. Came in from Fulham for 18.25 million from Fulham's academy. He's not been great, but again, another new-gen fullback who is actually playing regular football. So it's been strange that that's been kind of the one standout position that has actually got a lot of new-gens, is fullback. Because that feels pretty rare. If we look a little further down, there's like Richarlison is still here, though just 2 goals last season from right midfield. Another player with 1 more year left. But they've actually been playing a 4-1-4-1, which I don't think is a formation I've seen succeed very often. And it's not really succeeding at the moment. You can see the Everton squad here. They've got a very big squad, actually. There's a lot of players in this team. And not a lot of them are playing. And then also not a lot of them are doing great. Highest average rating, Alex Scott, the Bristol City player, who actually came from Guernsey. Ended up going to Man City, 6 million, bounced around a bit, Leeds, Fulham. His first full season, or his first season with Everton, rather, after a £20 million move. Certainly not a bad year at all, though only playing half the league games. We then find, after a really impressive season last year, Reading, a team that has been very up and down in the same. If we take a look at them, you can see promoted in 22-23, winning the league, straight away relegated, almost double relegation suffered there, and then somehow bounced straight back up again. Actually stayed up. This might not be a good sign. Let's say they stayed up, finishing 14th. And then the next season they went down. They finished 14th this year. Is that a sign? They've won the playoffs twice in this save. And then a 16th the season before. And now a 14th this season. So they'll head into a 3rd straight Premier League season after being predicted 20th. So Reading confounding the critics. Under John Terry, we've seen 4 different managers at Reading. Božko Paunović ended up leaving in 2023. We have looked at Paunović. Yeah, he went to Real Betis, I do remember that. Steve Cooper came in, was sacked pretty quickly after a pretty poor time. Benny McCarthy then came in from Blackburn. He didn't have the greatest times either, lasted just under 2 seasons. And then John Terry came in, who's now been here for just under 5 years. I say just under. He's been here about 4.5 years. He's had a pretty good time of it. So, fair play, John Terry. Turns out you're a pretty good manager. So, if we take a look at Reading's appearances for the previous season, we see Kelleher, who actually, I believe, came in... Yeah, he came in 2 years ago, actually. I was going to say 1. Has played every single game in the previous 2 Premier League seasons. Plus having a pretty darn good season last year. So, well done, Kelleher, on becoming a regular starter. As we see the likes of Ben Brereton Diaz. Kevin Stoyle is a player we've mentioned a few times as a new-gen centre-back. So again, defence has been the primary position for the new-gen players. See Axel Disasi, who I believe is the captain. He is now 33. We've got a few other guys like Guskowski and Francisco Ortega, who have been very regular at the back as well. So that consistency really helping Reading to keep the ball out the net this season. You can see the likes of Nathan Patterson, Ryan Kent. Mohamed Ali Cho, I think, had 1 really good season. Yeah, he had an 11-goal season with Palace the previous year. Got a £30 million move to Reading. And kind of sold him a little bit short there with only 5 Premier League goals this season. You see Neil Mopé is leaving. He's off to Pachuca. Nathan Teller was someone we saw them purchase a couple seasons ago from Blackburn. He has also not been great. In fact, last season he was pretty terrible. So it's a Reading side that doesn't really stand out as one that can consistently make itself a Premier League team, but there is still, a whole summer transfer window to come, so maybe they can turn that around. And they are in their third straight season, so can't really slag them off that much. Norwich is next, managed by Andrea Pirlo, which is just a bizarre sentence. And the managers just get more bizarre the more we go down, to be honest. If we look at what managers Norwich have had in the save, Dean Smith ended up being sacked in 2025, replaced by Vincenzo Montella. He stayed for 2 seasons before he ended up leaving the club for Leeds. Gerrard came in on that one. Again, just under 2 years for Steven Gerrard before he was sacked, and now Andrea Pirlo has been in charge for roughly a year and a half. If we look at the generals for Norwich, they're actually going into their 5th straight Premier League season, which, considering you look at the start and how much they just went up, down, 6 times they went up, down, up, down, up, down, or other way around, down, up. But now, a 5th straight Premier League season is going to happen. So that's good to see that they've cemented themselves in there. If we take a look at competition history, we see that they had 1 runners-up in the Championship. They've had a few playoff wins as well, and outside of that, nothing doing other than the youth. And if we look at the senior squad, Matvei Safonov being their highest appearance maker, is their regular goalkeeper, who actually had a long spell at Spurs as well, but actually gets to be a proper starter at Norwich. Hugo Felix has been a very good player for Norwich, came in from Blackburn 4 years ago. He's honestly certainly been their best player by quite a way, averaging over a 7 every season, even bagging 10 goals and 8 assists this year, so he's just getting better. Fabio Carvalho here as well, which is a very impressive signing. He came in from Brentford in January 2028, yeah. So he's been here for a good 3.5 years now, performing decently without being amazing, considering it was a big transfer fee. See Kevin Alvarez and Ryan Sessegnon as the fullbacks. Daryl Dike up front. Did net 12 times, to be fair to him. They did have Albert Lokonga, actually. He's heading off to Atletico Madrid. Josh Sargent's still here. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. They've got a decent track of players. Anthony Elanga, by the way, loaned out to Millwall. Elanga really has not developed in this one, unfortunately. I mean, you can see as well, he only actually played 9 times for Millwall, and just 4 times in the Premier League for Norwich this season as well. So it's not gone well for Elanga, unfortunately. But Norwich have a relatively decent side. You'd like to hope that they could go and get 2 or 3 more first-team players in the summer transfer window, and that could really push them on to being a bit more safe in the Premier League than 15th. Speaking of strange managers in strange places, Cristiano Ronaldo, the new Burnley manager. This happened in the last video, it wasn't too long ago. This was after Gini Wijnaldum ended up leaving Burnley to take charge of Brighton, another manager who left a side that stayed up and eventually got relegated because he went to a side that went down. There's been some very weird moves. As you can see, De Zerbi's here again as well. But Sean Dyche was gone by March 2026, so he lasted quite a lot longer than he has in real life. I hate saying that sentence. But Dean Smith came in, did a 1.5 years before being sacked. Jess Thorpe and Roberto De Zerbi were barely worth mentioning after doing less than a year. And then, yeah, the last 2 managers, Gini Wijnaldum and Cristiano Ronaldo. What a very, very bizarre time. With no trophies for Burnley throughout this time. Don't believe they've been in a cup final either. But if we look at their general league positions, they had 3 17th places in a row. So this is actually an improvement, finishing 16th. I think Burnley are very much going to be one of the favourites to go down next season, depending on the 3 sides that come back up. I'm not planning to particularly show who has come up this season, but we are also going to look at sides who have been in the Premier League. So if they happen to correlate, then is a little bit of a spoiler for the next video. To be on a bit more of a positive note, Burnley's best finish in the simulation, twice they've come 11th. So those were certainly not too bad seasons, but it's been very nervy for the past 4 years, but they have managed to stay up each time. If we take a look at their side, we see Yassin Adli has been pretty much head and shoulders above everybody else in this Burnley side. He's been pretty special, to be honest. Will turn 31 during the summer. Obviously, most important player by quite a way. We see Angelo, a player that we have mentioned a couple of times as well. He's been at Burnley for a very long time, by the way. Just over £10 million move from Santos. And he has been kind of gradually getting better. There was that one-off 9-goal season there. But average rating-wise, he is gradually getting better, now 26 years of age. And outside of that, they've not had a lot going for them. You can see Luka Podlek, the goalkeeper. Nathan Collins is still here. He's up to 260 Premier League appearances. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is here. Monchu has been an interesting player without really ever standing out. Take a look at his stats again. You know, a couple, there's the 7 assist season in his very first season in the Premier League. So he's had his moments without being too great. Che Adams is here at Burnley, will turn 35, and his contract actually ends, so he'll be leaving. You can see likes of Lissandro Martinez, Kyle Walker-Peters, Lewis Travis. There are some familiar names here that aren't really playing too much. We get likes of Milero Bogard. I mean, I mentioned with Sander Berg, this is another man who's been in goal. I think Bogard's been in goal twice for Burnley, but he's been pretty solid for them as well. They've been okay to the point where they have just barely survived a lot. And the final team of the sides that stayed up to be in the Premier League for next season, Leeds United. It's been weird for Leeds because they had such a good period of time in the middle that was so short. If we look at their managerial history, Marcelo Bielsa ended up leaving on the 1st of January during the Quick Sim season. He went off to be Spurs boss at that time. He actually retired 8 years ago, so we can't even click on him at this point. But then Alfred Schroeder came in and spent over 5.5 years in charge. And sort of the middle of that spell, they were absolutely brilliant. And one of those seasons, they ended up getting Champions League football and coming 4th. And then it just went horribly wrong in about 2026 to the 2027 period. And eventually Schroeder was sacked. Montella had a very brief spell in charge, as did Veselinovic. That was very brief. James was less than a year. Now Marcelo Gallardo has been here since December. So Gallardo, we saw, was Spurs manager for like 5 seconds. We'll see if it can last a little bit longer at Leeds, considering they have been very sack happy since 2027. We look at their general, you can see what happened here. Just the continuous rise from 2022, 2023 up. And then you get that 4th place finish in 25-26. And it has just been a descent ever since into being kind of an obscurity team in this period to this season being extremely dangerous and almost going down, but they managed to survive. We take a look at the squad for Leeds at the moment. It's certainly not the squad they had previously. Like, Cole Jakob Hein is in goal. He was not very good. 68 conceded and just 2 clean sheets in 37 games. In his second season as a full-time Premier League goalkeeper, took in a season with Derby. We will take a quick look at Derby once we get past Leeds. We'll take a look at all the teams that have been in the Premier League for at least 1 season. Kaya Gobine in goal, not been great. You see, Cole Palmer, I was quite excited by this transfer when it happened, but I don't know. He's not quite been as good as I'd hoped. The 10 assist season in the first season at Leeds kind of got my hopes up. He did get 8 this season, so he's not doing badly, but I was hoping for a little bit more from him. Jack Harrison is still here, Calvin Phillips is still going. Vitinha was really good. He's actually part of the 100-goal Premier League club now. But you can see since about 2028, he has dropped off. Did get up to 9 goals this season, but it's very, very short of his 18, 20, and multiple 15s in his first 3 or 4 seasons in the top flight. So I think it is definitely time for Leeds to move on from a lot of these players and start to form a new squad. They're going to have a very busy summer, I think, if they really want to be comfortable next season at least. So as mentioned, now that we've covered the sides that will definitely be in the Premier League next season, we're going to cover sides that have been in the top flight in this save. We're going to start with the 3 sides that have just gone down this season, since they are the most easily accessible. We start with Brentford after they finish 18th this season. They're under Slavisa Jokanovic. Managers, we've seen quite a lot of them. We saw Wilder, Vicens, Van Bommel, Jardim, Deitch was here, Benny McCarthy. They've been through a lot of managers, and Jokanovic has actually stuck in for 3.5 years at this point, and it doesn't seem like they're going to sack him for the relegation, so not too bad for him there. As he went down after just the 1 season back, have spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they've had 6 Premier League seasons in the save, which is not too bad, to be fair, for Brentford, but they have gone back down again. Blackburn have also been a kind of up and down team, currently managed by Roberto Martinez, as we previously mentioned. Didn't mean to click on this, but there was actually a stock exchange move for Blackburn in 2025. New chairman Jack Joyce. Maybe that's why they're doing better. But manager-wise, they've worked through Tony Mowbray, Benny McCarthy, Neil Critchley for like 5 seconds. Frank Lampard was their long-term boss, but it is now Roberto Martinez. We'll take a look at the Premier League seasons that they've had. They haven't stayed up once. Blackburn have had 4 Premier League seasons in the save and been relegated every single time, with a best finish of 18th in 2028-29. And then we see Brighton, who finished bottom this season. They've been a fairly regular team in the Premier League, have disappeared a couple of times though. If we take a look at their managers, Graham Potter's been here twice. Roberto Martinez was here for a year before leaving. Thiago Motta actually did get 3 years, which isn't too bad. Now on to Gini Wijnaldum, who made a strange move from Burnley to Brighton, considering what eventually happened. If we do take a look at Brighton again, they have been fairly regular. You've got your 5 seasons in here, your 2 here, and then this last season just gone as well. So they've actually spent 8 seasons in the top flight through the simulation, but they will head into a 3rd season in the Championship next time out. The next side we get to cover is Crystal Palace. You can see just at the top there, they did finish 6th in the Championship. So there's half a chance that maybe we see them next season. I'm not going to check though. So that will at least be a little bit of a question mark over whether they have come up. Currently managed by Jess Thorpe. If we take a look at their managers, again, they've been through a few. Patrick Vieira, David Moyes. Thorpe actually in his 2nd spell with Crystal Palace. Conte and De Zerbi have been here as well. If we take a look at what Premier League seasons they have had, it's been extremely up and down since the 23-24 season when they were relegated for the first, well, they were in the 2nd tier for the first time since 2012-13, not relegated. That is not the right term. But they've had 3 seasons here, another 3 across there. So they've had 6 Premier League seasons. They might be having a 7th. Not sure yet. We'll find out at the beginning of next video. One of the more interesting teams that we saw in the Premier League, and it was actually the very first video, Season 1 of the 22-23 season, when Millwall were a Premier League club. They're now managed by Dean Smith. You can see a 9th place finish in the Championship, which is certainly respectable. We won't be seeing them next season. If we take a look at their managers, it was Gary Rowett who took them into the Premier League. He actually ended up staying until 2027, when he was sacked, was replaced by Joby McAnuff for just less than a year, and it's actually been Dean Smith for 2.5 years now. Again, we take a look at their one Premier League campaign. It was the 22-23 season, as mentioned, and they did finish bottom. They've come close to returning. They had a 5th place finish in 29-30, and that's actually it for playoff-wise, or even pressing promotion, really. But Millwall was certainly interesting. West Ham have certainly been a surprising team in how bad they've actually been. They are, once again, in the Championship, a 3rd place finish. So again, a side we don't know if they've come up or not, but West Ham will have played Palace in the Championship playoff semi-finals. So we know that one of them certainly has not come up. And that's a pretty stupid comment, only one comes up anyway. But we know that they played each other in the semi-finals. Without looking, again, we'll wait until the start of the next video to see who actually comes up. We'll take a look at their managers. They went through David Moyes pretty quickly. Conte came in, just over 2 years for him. And then Van Bronckhorst, Potter and Martinez before Phil Neville taking charge back in January. So we'll see how Phil gets on. He did have a relatively long spell with Everton. It drops down to the Championship. If we take a look at how West Ham's Premier League campaigns have gone, they have actually been in the Premier League for all but 2 of the simulation seasons, with a best finish of around about 12th. Yeah, a best finish of 12th, which is honestly surprisingly bad. I expected a lot more from West Ham. They were actually media predicted 1st and only came 3rd. So it'll be quite interesting whether we see who's come in the top 2 from teams that we've previously seen, or if we figure out that we've got some new sides. Okay, so we do work out one of the sides that we will be seeing back in the Premier League next season, and it's Fulham, who have been promoted under Josip Ilicic. It's not the title, it is just 2nd place in the Championship. They will return. If we take a look at their managers, they've actually only gone through 2 on their 3rd, because Josip Ilicic has actually been in charge for nearly 4.5 years at this point, despite their ups and downs. If we take a look at their Premier League history, they had one really good season where they finished 11th in 2025-26. It's been, very, very up and... Actually, not very up and down. They had the 3 Premier League seasons here, and that's it. There are no more Premier League seasons until next year, so they're going to have their 4th in-game Premier League season coming up. I know I am on the Bournemouth screen, but I'm definitely disrespecting Blackburn a little bit. They did actually win a League Cup. I forgot to mention it when I was on them. They have won a League Cup. But back to AFC Bournemouth, and actually they're the other team that have come up. So, slightly spoilery, but I was expecting this to happen. Eddie Howe, back at Bournemouth, as we have mentioned previously, has now been there for just over 3 years once again. They had Scott Parker for a very long time. Another mention of Roberto De Zerbi, possibly the strangest manager in this save. But Eddie Howe wins the Championship title. If we look at Bournemouth's Premier League history within the save, their first return was 2024-25. And since then, they've had 4 Premier League seasons, only staying up once. They will now enter a 5th Premier League season within the save. And our final team that we will be looking at for this video is Derby County, who had a Premier League season a couple of years ago, I believe. It was not too long ago. It was 2028-29. So, obviously, we're relegated after their financial troubles in 2021-22. Came back to the Championship in 2026. Got a very, very surprise promotion through the playoffs in 27-28. Got that one-off season, did come 20th, but certainly didn't embarrass themselves in that season. Since then, it's been a 12th place, and then just missing out on the playoffs with a 7th place finish this season. We take a look at their manager history as well. Wayne Rooney was gone in 2024 after being sacked. Out of interest, Wayne Rooney currently unemployed after 4 years in charge of Wigan, so it's not gone too great for Wayne. They then had Veselinovic, who was there for 4.5 years before leaving. Then this South African guy that came in during the Premier League season was unfortunately sacked early doors of their first season back in the Championship. And since then, it's actually been Joe Garner in charge. Former Rangers, Preston, Watford, former a lot of things player. Just 43 years old as a manager. He will try to bring Derby back to the Premier League as quickly as he can. And so that is the summary of where we are at 10 years into this simulation. A lot has changed, a lot has stayed the same. We've seen some interesting teams come in this first decade of the simulation, but we've still got a long way to go. I'm going to keep this going for as long as I'm interested in the save, and so far I still am, so I'm planning to keep it going. We're going to have the 2031-32 season coming up in the next few days. I hope you have enjoyed this catch-up video. If you're new to the series, I hope that this has helped to kind of give an idea where all the teams are at. And as mentioned, the 2031-32 season is coming. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and it will definitely bring that about for you in the next few days. Thank you very much for watching, and peace.